A lot of people now that I've noticed in the West just have the intellectual awakening of nothingness, of the awakeness, of consciousness, but it doesn't, the consciousness is still behind, and it's still a witness behind, and it's not pushed forward and been this energetic shift in, and this beingness. It's not pushed out into everything. And you can hear it by, they wouldn't describe it as love. I don't mean personal love though. They describe it as something bland, and you can just sort of tell. But they don't even know that, because until that shift happens, you wouldn't even know it existed. You are also a story, aren't you? What makes your words different to traditional teachings? In the end, they're just the same. Well, you know, what makes my words different? I don't know, that's a really silly question in a way, a really silly statement in a way. Uh, I think that with the internet and with the shift and with the fact that we're not Indian, I think there's going to be this really beautiful change of the way of speaking about non-duality, and I think it's going to become way more accessible and less religious. So I don't think it's anything to do with my words or anything to do with me, but I think there's this shift in speaking about it, which I think is really needed, because there's too many people out there trying to be Indian and speak about this in the West when they're Westerners. And so it's got to adapt to Western culture, and as soon it won't even be Indian anymore, it'll be the West waking up, which is so beautiful. And it's so different, the mentalities and the bodies in the West, they're so different. So there's had to be a huge change happen in non-duality and the way it's being spoken about. The reason why I think maybe a female body wants to call it beingness more than consciousness or the witness is because there has been too much deadness and coldness in speaking about non-duality, which has been a very masculine trait, I think. And I think that this beingness and speaking about it very much with love and compassion is a more feminine way of speaking about it. And I think it's a really needed change, a really needed change. So I just want to make it clear that in no way am I speaking about a deadness. And the effect that this has in the body-mind mechanism is one of total compassion, because you are no longer a body-mind mechanism that is trying to get things from people. So you're no longer trying to, you're not a getter, you're not a taker. In a way you could say the body-mind mechanism is total giving, and that's how the rest of nature and the rest of the world is. But when there's identification, then it's about getting. So the tree is in a perpetual state of giving, you could say. Like it's always giving, it grows and it gives. When you lose that identification, then yes, the body moves towards pleasure, like the tree moves towards the sun, which is really beautiful and not a bad thing. We have it that moving towards pleasure and moving away from pain is a really bad thing. It's beautiful, it's the way this works. We don't say that it's bad that the tree grows towards the sun. It's a really divine thing. And so you lose that intensity, that anything in this world will bring you happiness. This is happiness, this is love, what's happening. So everything which is happening is totally and utterly appreciated for what it is. And there's no longer this separation from it, so it's yourself. So in a way there's total compassion. But this compassion isn't something I teach like the Buddhists, and in the past it's been taught, you have to behave like this, but there will be a natural compassion that arises. You have to behave like this, you have to do this, you have to be this. Morality and compassion will naturally come when there's not identification. It's a natural thing. It's so beautiful. Like the tree is not going to take too much from the soil, otherwise it will die. Whereas if we look at what separate humans do, what our society is doing, is we're freaking killing the planet out of greed. We are being so freaking greedy. And us ones at the tops, I mean, don't get me started on society. And I mean, all of us that are listening, there's very few of us that are poor in our world. I mean, you might be poor relative to your society, but it's us that should be standing up for all those people that are starving and don't have homes. But we don't, because we've got it good enough, so we don't do that. It's very sad. But that won't happen. That cannot happen when a society won't behave like that, when the people in the society are not separate. Non-duality is the biggest activism this world can see. When I was younger, I went to the Middle East and I thought I could change the world. And then I began to realize that what has to be changed is people and the way they think. Because you can change the world, you can try and enforce rules, but when people are separate, they'll be run by greed. So what has to happen first is there has to be a shift in human consciousness. Otherwise, any political system that you put in will fail. It will become about greed. And people will naturally want to share. And they won't need to take so much. They won't need to wreck this planet. They won't need to go out all the time hunting to have fun because they're afraid of boredom or not being part of it. The biggest activism you can do is share non-duality.